I need a home for all these mini beasts, all these insects and wildlife that's around us. You can hopefully hear the birdsong in the background. You can see the butterflies in these strips. There are times when life gets you down, and if you walk into a strip like that, you can't help but smile. So that, in partnership with a profitable part of the farm, profitable part of agriculture, in partnership, working with Mother Nature, is a win-win situation. Hello, my name's Colin Chappell. I farm in North Lincolnshire. Sustainability to me means farming within my own means so that I can make a living for my family whilst also looking after the environment and particular water that surrounds me. Unusually for me, we're on sand. So this is a winter barley crop for seed, and next door to this we have an environmental strip, a wildlife strip of about 6 metres wide that goes on all the way down to the trees behind us. As farmers, you tend to get sort of isolated in your own little patch and you're worried about what's going on your own little on farm. What you don't see is the bigger picture that's around you. So if you compare your figures with other people, there'll be something in those figures that make you stop and listen and stand up and look at. It's those figures that are more interesting to me, and I will quiz them. Why is your fertiliser cost so low? Why is your fungicide? Colin, why are you using lots of trace elements? Those sort of questions, and with 2 ears and 1 mouth, I can listen to people's other answers before spouting off what's important to me. Back to the isolation. On a farm, you are isolated with your own thoughts and your own angers and throwing stuff at the telly and trying to counter criticism that is always seems to be levelled at farmers. I've got a way around that. I've got a way around that I can teach the next generation what we're doing, why we're doing it. I've got a way then of talking to the public about what we're doing. I've got a way of talking to other farmers and quizzing them on why they're doing what they're doing. And therefore, to me, I can learn so much more by talking to other people, even if they're 7, 8-year-olds. I can learn their point of view, I can see their vision for the future. And if I can in some small way mould them to understand where the food comes from, then maybe I've just won in that situation. So a few years ago it was all about the profit and the bottom line and making money, and the more you put on a crop, the more you get out of that crop. That's fantastic. But that model only works for so long before you realise it's broke. This is sand, for example, what we're surrounding from. There is a limit to what this field will do. So therefore you find other options, you find other ways. And if those other ways include embracing the wildlife element, if the government or the Elm scheme or whatever is going to push us down, and that genuinely fills you with pride, and you can mix that with a profitable farming ethos, cracked it. Okay, so the next generation is our future. We've lost the disconnect between farming and food. We have also lost a way in for a large proportion of youngsters now. Unless you inherit a farm, how are you going to get into farming other than driving big tractors? Educating youngsters about where their food comes from and laying a table in front of them and saying, that's food, that is human food. I produced that on my farm, that's what can feed you. And you ask them, name something the farmer doesn't produce that you eat. They can't do it. So my main farm runs along the banks of the River Ancombe. We own 1,000 acres in the River Ancombe. We look after a further 400 on a contract farm, which is sand, which is what we're sat on today. We've taken the tenancy on a roughly 300 acre plot of land in the River Ancombe. We look after a neighbour's 200 acres of crop, and now another neighbour's 150 acres of crop. Soil type in the Ancombe is predominantly clay. And not that I know how to farm clay, but I've lived with that all my life. Here now we're on sand. You treat this with different perspective, but bearing in mind soil's a living, breathing organism in itself. Basically treat everything with kid gloves. And if you treat your soil well, it'll respond well in the healthy crops growing. So when we bring the kids onto the farm, they all want to know about that bit there, the ears. That's the bit that makes the money for me. But for me, where my passion lies is this end of the crop. These roots here, and trying to stimulate these roots to produce a healthier top growth. Talk about rhizospheres and nutrients here. The soil is the mechanism by which this plant thrives or otherwise. The soil is healthy, the plant's healthy. I need to concentrate all my attention on this part of the plant, and that bit will come naturally. So we did a carbon footprint a few years ago, and I'm the wrong side of where I need to be by a bigger margin than I thought. Two ways of addressing that was to sequester carbon in the soil, but most of my soils are 8% organic matters. To raise 8% organic matters will probably cost me a lot to even do 0.1, 0.2%. So reduce tillage is one way. The more important factor, when you grow a ton of wheat, half that bar of a ton of wheat is made up with fertiliser and fertiliser production. You can make more gains by addressing that 50% of the bar. So nitrogen is my key thing. If I can reduce the amount of nitrogen I use by using it more efficiently. A lot of people put 240 kilos of nitrogen on, but at 60% efficiency. I grain test my wheat, my milling wheat, and I can tell you that I'm using 218 kilos of nitrogen to produce milling wheat, and it's 84% efficient. That's the point we need to focus on and get our nitrogen more efficient and working for us. My hope for the future is that the next generation actually value where the food comes from. If we can just educate the next generation that there is a value to this, even if it's just the wildlife value, then I think we'll have won, and I hope then I could really truly stand up and say I'm sustainable.
BASF. We create chemistry.